Welcome back to History Unfolded. Germany conquered much of Europe in less than 2 years. France collapsed, Poland was defeated, the Balkans fell, and by the summer of 1941, Hitler seemed unstoppable. Around the world, millions believed Germany would win World War II. But history tells a different story. Was victory ever truly possible? Or was Germany fighting a war it could never win? Today, we'll uncover the answer. Part 1. Could Germany have won World War II? Imagine waking up in Europe during the summer of 1941. Almost every newspaper carries the same message: Germany is unstoppable. Only 2 years earlier, many military experts believed another world war would become a long, exhausting conflict similar to World War I. Instead, Adolf Hitler shocked the world. In September 1939, Poland collapsed in just a few weeks. Britain and France had declared war, yet neither could stop the German advance. Then came the spring of 1940. Denmark surrendered almost immediately. Norway was captured despite British resistance. Soon after, German forces invaded Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Within days, one of Europe's strongest armies had been bypassed. France, considered one of the most powerful military nations on earth, fell in only 6 weeks. The speed of these victories left the world stunned. German armored divisions moved faster than anyone believed possible. Tanks, aircraft, artillery, and infantry worked together with incredible coordination. Instead of attacking every enemy position head-on, they punched through weak points, surrounded entire armies, and cut off their supplies. The strategy became known as Blitzkrieg, lightning war. To many observers, it appeared that Germany had discovered an entirely new way of fighting. By mid-1940, Hitler controlled most of continental Europe. From the Atlantic coast of France to the borders of the Soviet Union, German influence stretched across thousands of kilometers. Factories from occupied countries now worked for the German war machine. Millions of workers produced weapons, vehicles, ammunition, and equipment. Germany had gained access to enormous industrial resources without having to build them from scratch. Meanwhile, countries across Europe either surrendered, were occupied, or became German allies. Italy joined the Axis. Romania supplied valuable oil. Hungary and Bulgaria supported German operations. Finland would later fight alongside Germany against the Soviet Union. For the first time in modern history, much of Europe answered to Berlin. Across the English Channel, Britain remained the only major enemy still standing. Many expected Britain to surrender next. German bombers crossed the skies almost daily during the Battle of Britain. Cities were bombed relentlessly. London burned. Night after night, civilians took shelter underground, while explosions echoed above them. Yet Britain refused to surrender. Although Germany failed to destroy the Royal Air Force, many people outside Britain still believed the country's defeat was only a matter of time. Then, on June 22, 1941, Hitler made what would become the largest military invasion in human history, Operation Barbarossa. More than 3 million German soldiers crossed into the Soviet Union. Thousands of tanks advanced across hundreds of miles. Nearly 3,000 aircraft supported the attack. Never before had the world witnessed an invasion on such an enormous scale. At first, everything seemed to go exactly according to Hitler's plan. Entire Soviet armies were surrounded. Hundreds of thousands of prisoners were captured. German forces advanced hundreds of kilometers within weeks. Cities fell one after another: Smolensk, Minsk, Kiev. The Soviet Union appeared to be collapsing. Foreign journalists reported that Germany might finish the campaign before winter. Even some Allied leaders privately feared that Soviet resistance would soon end. Looking back today, it is easy to assume Germany was always destined to lose. But people living through those events did not know the future. In 1941, Germany looked almost unbeatable. Its army had defeated nearly every opponent it had faced. Its officers were respected around the world. Its soldiers had years of combat experience. Its weapons often outperformed those of their enemies. German commanders enjoyed remarkable tactical flexibility, allowing local officers to make rapid decisions without waiting for orders from Berlin. This made German units exceptionally effective during fast-moving operations. Their tank divisions coordinated closely with aircraft. Radio communication allowed commanders to react far more quickly than many opposing armies. Even Germany's enemies admired its military professionalism. The psychological effect was just as powerful. Every victory increased Germany's reputation. Every defeated nation convinced others that resistance might be pointless. Some governments preferred cooperation over destruction. Others simply hoped Germany would leave them alone. Fear became one of Hitler's greatest weapons. By late 1941, Germany controlled one of the largest empires Europe had seen in centuries. Its armies occupied territory stretching from Norway to Greece. Millions of people lived under German rule. Its factories produced enormous quantities of weapons. Its military seemed unstoppable. So the question naturally arises, if Germany had already conquered so much, if its army was the strongest in Europe, if its enemies had suffered defeat after defeat, why didn't Germany win the war? Was victory truly within reach? Or was the entire German war effort built on weaknesses that simply hadn't become visible yet? To answer that question, we have to look beyond the spectacular victories, because hidden beneath Germany's success were problems that would eventually decide the outcome of the largest war in human history. Part 2. Was victory ever really possible? At first glance, Germany's position in 1941 looked almost perfect. Most of Europe had fallen. The Wehrmacht had defeated one army after another. Hitler stood at the height of his power. Yet beneath this image of unstoppable strength lay a dangerous illusion. Germany had won battles at an incredible speed, but winning battles and winning a world war were two very different things. The first problem was geography. The German military now occupied an enormous empire stretching thousands of kilometers from northern Norway to North Africa and deep into Eastern Europe. Every new conquest created another front that had to be defended. Every occupied city required soldiers. Every railway had to be protected. Every bridge, fuel depot, and supply line became another target. The larger Germany became, the weaker each individual part of its empire grew. Then there was Britain. Although Germany had forced nearly every continental power into submission, one nation refused to negotiate. Britain remained in the war. Protected by the English Channel and backed by the world's most powerful navy, it continued to resist. The Battle of Britain had already demonstrated that Germany could not achieve complete air superiority. Without control of the skies, an invasion of Britain became nearly impossible. Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of the British Isles, was quietly postponed. In reality, Germany never solved the problem of crossing the Channel against both the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. Britain became an unsinkable aircraft carrier only a short distance from occupied Europe. Every day that Britain survived was another day Germany failed to secure complete victory in the West. But Hitler believed he had a solution. Instead of defeating Britain directly, he decided to destroy Britain's future ally, the Soviet Union. Hitler believed the Red Army would collapse after a few months. He expected Soviet resistance to disappear before winter. He assumed that once Moscow fell, the entire Soviet system would collapse. It was one of the greatest miscalculations of the war. The Soviet Union was unlike any opponent Germany had faced. Its territory seemed endless. Its population numbered nearly 200 million people. Entire factories could be dismantled, loaded onto trains, and rebuilt thousands of kilometers east of the Ural Mountains, far beyond the reach of German bombers. As German forces advanced, the Soviets retreated. They destroyed railways. They burned crops. They demolished bridges. Anything that might help the invaders was eliminated. This scorched earth strategy forced German troops to travel farther and farther while receiving fewer supplies. Every kilometer east made Germany weaker. Every kilometer west made the Soviets stronger. Then came another enemy Germany had underestimated: distance itself. German supply trucks drove across roads that often turned into mud after heavy rain. Railways used different track gauges than those in Western Europe, forcing engineers to rebuild hundreds of miles of track before trains could deliver supplies. Fuel became increasingly scarce. Replacement parts arrived late. Food became harder to transport. A tank without fuel was nothing more than several tons of steel. An army without ammunition could not fight. Logistics, not battlefield tactics, began deciding the campaign, and then came winter. Although the popular belief is that winter alone defeated Germany, the truth is more complicated. The cold affected both sides. Soviet soldiers froze. German soldiers froze. Vehicles broke down for both armies. The real difference was preparation. The Soviets were equipped for winter warfare. German forces expected the campaign to be over before the snow arrived. Many soldiers lacked proper winter uniforms. Engines struggled to start. Lubricants froze. Weapons malfunctioned. Medical supplies became scarce. Exhaustion spread through entire divisions. For the first time since the war began, Germany's momentum came to a halt. Then something happened that Hitler had desperately hoped to avoid. The Soviet Union recovered. Fresh divisions arrived from Siberia after Soviet intelligence concluded that Japan would not invade from the east. These troops were well trained, experienced in winter combat, and fully equipped for freezing temperatures. In December 1941, they launched a massive counteroffensive outside Moscow. German forces, exhausted after months of constant fighting, were pushed back. The myth of German invincibility had been shattered. The war that Hitler expected to finish in a few months had become exactly what Germany feared most: a long war of attrition. And Germany was poorly prepared for such a conflict. Its economy had never been fully mobilized before the invasion of the Soviet Union. Industrial production remained lower than it could have been. Many civilian industries continued operating while Germany fought on multiple fronts. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union transformed its economy into a giant war machine. Factories worked day and night. Entire cities became production centers. The Red Army lost enormous amounts of equipment during 1941, but it kept replacing them. Thousands of tanks, thousands of aircraft, thousands of artillery pieces, again and again. Germany could destroy Soviet armies, but destroying them permanently proved almost impossible. Then, on December 7th, 1941, events on the other side of the world changed everything. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Only days later, Germany declared war on the United States. This decision expanded the conflict into a truly global war. It also brought the world's largest industrial economy directly into the fight against Germany. American factories would soon begin producing weapons on a scale that no nation had ever witnessed. Ships, aircraft, tanks, trucks, engines, ammunition, millions upon millions of tons of military equipment. From that moment onward, Germany was no longer fighting Britain and the Soviet Union alone. It was fighting three industrial giants at the same time: Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States, each one stronger than Germany in a different way. Britain ruled the seas. The Soviet Union possessed enormous manpower and territory. The United States possessed unmatched industrial power. Together, they created a combination that Germany struggled to match. Yet despite these overwhelming challenges, many historians still ask one fascinating question: could different decisions have changed the outcome? What if Hitler had delayed the invasion of the Soviet Union? What if Germany had never declared war on America? What if military strategy had been left to experienced generals instead of political ideology? Would any of those choices have been enough to change history, or had Germany already crossed the point of no return? That is exactly what we'll explore next. Part 3. The Final Verdict. By the beginning of 1942, Germany still controlled one of the largest military empires in history. Its armies occupied most of Europe. Its soldiers continued to win battles. Its commanders remained among the most experienced in the world. From the outside, Germany still looked powerful, but appearances can be deceiving. Wars are not won by spectacular offensives alone. Eventually, every nation reaches a point where it must replace its losses. New tanks, new aircraft, new trucks, new ammunition, new soldiers. And this was where Germany faced a problem that no brilliant battlefield victory could solve. Its enemies simply possessed far greater resources. The United States alone produced more military equipment than Germany could ever hope to match. American factories operated around the clock. Entire automobile plants stopped building civilian cars and began producing tanks, aircraft engines, armored vehicles, and military trucks. Shipyards launched new cargo ships almost faster than German submarines could sink them. By 1944, Allied bombers were appearing over Germany in numbers that would have seemed impossible only a few years earlier. Every destroyed factory could often be replaced by another in Britain or the United States. Germany had no such luxury. At the same time, the Soviet Union continued expanding its military production. Despite losing enormous territory in 1941, Soviet industry not only survived, it grew. Factories beyond the Ural Mountains became nearly untouchable. Every month brought thousands of new T-34 tanks, artillery guns, aircraft, and millions of shells. The Red Army that Germany faced in 1943 was far stronger than the one it had invaded 2 years earlier. Germany, meanwhile, found itself fighting everywhere at once: in North Africa, across the Atlantic, over Germany itself, in Italy, throughout the Balkans, and across the vast Eastern Front. Every new battlefield demanded more men, more fuel, more ammunition, more aircraft, more vehicles. Germany simply did not possess enough of any of them. Fuel became one of the greatest crises. Romanian oil fields supplied much of Germany's petroleum, but it was never enough. Synthetic fuel plants attempted to make up the difference, yet they required enormous industrial resources and became prime targets for Allied bombing. For, without fuel, tanks could not maneuver, aircraft remained grounded, pilots received fewer hours of training, experienced crews became increasingly difficult to replace. Even Germany's technological advantages began losing their value. The Tiger tank was one of the most feared weapons of the war. German aircraft, such as the FW-19, earned tremendous respect. Later in the conflict, Germany even introduced revolutionary jet fighters and advanced rocket technology. But technology alone could not win the war. A single advanced tank that required enormous resources to build could not compete with several reliable tanks rolling off enemy assembly lines every day. Quantity eventually became a weapon of its own. Meanwhile, Hitler became increasingly involved in military decision-making. Professional generals often recommended strategic withdrawals to shorten defensive lines and preserve experienced troops. Hitler repeatedly refused. He ordered entire armies to hold their positions at all costs. In many cases, those armies were surrounded and destroyed. One disaster followed another. Stalingrad, Tunisia, Normandy, Operation Bagration. Each defeat cost Germany irreplaceable soldiers, vehicles, and experienced officers. By 1944, the balance of power had completely changed. The Allies controlled the skies. Strategic bombing campaigns crippled German industry. Railroads were destroyed. Fuel depots exploded. Factories struggled to maintain production. Every month became more difficult than the last. Then came June 6th, 1944. The D-Day landings opened a massive new front in Western Europe. Germany now faced simultaneous offensives from east and west. The Red Army pushed relentlessly toward Berlin. American, British, and Canadian forces advanced from France. The German military fought with determination. Many units resisted until the very end, but courage alone could not overcome overwhelming economic and industrial superiority. Finally, in April 1945, Soviet forces entered Berlin, street by street, building by building. The capital that had once symbolized Germany's dominance became the site of its final battle. Deep beneath the city, Adolf Hitler remained inside his bunker. The empire that had once seemed unstoppable was collapsing around him. On April 30th, Hitler took his own life. 1 week later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. So, could Germany actually have won World War II? The answer depends on what we mean by winning. Could Germany have achieved even greater victories during the early years of the war? Probably. Could different strategic decisions have delayed defeat? Very possibly. Avoiding war with the United States, delaying the invasion of the Soviet Union, or making better military decisions might have changed the timeline. Some campaigns could have ended differently. Some battles might have been won, but winning individual battles is not the same as winning the entire war. To permanently defeat Britain, the Soviet Union, and eventually the United States would have required Germany to overcome enemies with larger populations, stronger economies, greater industrial capacity, superior access to natural resources, and the ability to replace losses far faster than Germany ever could. Those realities were larger than any single general, larger than any single battle, even larger than Hitler himself. In the end, Germany's greatest victories created the very problems that guaranteed its defeat. Every conquered nation had to be occupied. Every new front stretched supply lines farther. Every battlefield consumed resources that Germany could never fully replace. The faster Germany expanded, the harder it became to sustain the war. History often remembers World War II through famous battles, legendary commanders, and dramatic moments. But beneath every victory and every defeat stood something less visible: factories, railroads, fuel, food, steel, workers, economies. World War II was not only a war of armies, it was a war of production. And in that contest, Germany was fighting against opponents it simply could not outproduce forever. That may be the most important lesson of all. Military brilliance can win campaigns. It can win battles. Sometimes, it can even reshape history. But in a global war, fought across continents, against multiple industrial superpowers at once, strategy alone is not enough. In the end, Germany did not lose because it lacked courage, capable soldiers, or advanced weapons. It lost because the war it chose to fight eventually became larger than anything it was capable of sustaining. And once that happened, the outcome became less a question of if Germany would lose, and more a question of when.